24 candidates. When you look at it, and I think you get as excited or more excited than I do every election cycle.
My job, yeah.
When you're looking at it, what do you think of the pool? 24. Do you think, first of all, do you think more are going to jump in? Or is this it?
The more choices you have, in one sense, the more vital your party is. But at a certain point, there's certain logistical hurdles. How do you hold a debate with 24 people?
Right.
So you've got to start winnowing. You've got to make some decisions and sort of separating the people who are not legitimate in the sense that they're not more than vanity candidacies versus people who have a legitimate chance. We might see some shifting after these first debates. Debates are really the first time that the non-political activists begin saying, oh yeah, we're in a presidential election cycle. Who's running again? Who are these people? A lot of the polling this stage is reflecting name recognition. You know, Joe Biden, obviously Bernie, obviously Elizabeth Warren. What I'm interested in is, does anyone break out of the pack of the second-tier candidates who name recognition isn't there yet, but they attract enough attention they begin getting a surge of endorsements.
Senator Elizabeth Warren is getting a bump in the polls. Why do you think that is right now?
You know, of all the candidates, she has rolled out the most detailed policy proposals, even compared to Bernie. If you go to Bernie's website, he talks about tax plan and taxing the 1% and so on. Her tax plan is much more detailed. But the other thing is, there's an interesting difference in rhetoric between her and Bernie Sanders. She, in some ways, is more progressive than him if you look at her Senate voting record. She's one of the most liberal senators we've had for 50 years. But the way she markets herself, it's all pragmatism. It's all helping the middle class. Bernie, since the days he was a socialist mayor, is locked into this more 1%. You know, he's dividing the world into the 1% and everybody else. She seems more pragmatic, and I think that is appealing to people as well.
Especially her plan on student loans, student debt. I mean, everybody, almost everybody in America who has a college degree is impacted in some way or another. Yeah,
that resonates. I mean, all three of the front runners have all talked about free tuition for public schools, but she's gone the furthest in the debt issue. And the reason that resonates so well is because even if you're not a progressive, a socialist, Americans generally believe in everybody's right to education. So to have her come out with that program, that's really, I thought, was a master stroke.
Do you think he'll be able to reclaim the excitement he was able to generate in 2016?
I think it'll be a different kind of excitement. In 2016, he came from nowhere, and there was a sense that he was an alternative voice to this established candidate. But people didn't have the expectations that he was going to do well. This time he has the added burden of being one of the front runners, and so it's not enough just to sort of capture the progressive imagination. People are a little more skeptical in terms of thinking, well, you know, where's the beef? You got to show us that you can win as well. Democratic voters, to the extent that it's being reflected in the polls, are concerned about winning this time around. They want to recapture the White House, and it's not enough just to have a candidate out there who's espousing some very interesting principles that we might want to think about moving ahead. But can those principles be implemented? Can you win? And the fact that you have some heavyweight candidates in there who are fighting for this nomination, I think, is a reminder of how serious the stakes are.
And if you had to decide today, who would be the best candidate to take on and beat President Trump?
You want me to go on record?
It's early, and granted it's early. Do you have a front runner?
The thing that's uncertain at this early stage is how much of the polling is just derived from name recognition and how much is solid support underneath. Subject to the realization that we're very fluid here, I'd have to say Joe Biden right now is probably the best candidate. And the one other thing I would add is when you look at polling data, there's a big chunk of Democrats who look at themselves as moderates. They're not really necessarily embracing Medicare for all.
Do you think the fact that he's establishment may actually work in his favor this time around, because everybody pushed in the 2016 election, you know, going against the establishment, but we've seen the negative aspect of putting somebody into office who didn't have the experience. So he's the one with the most. He's been touting that. He was the vice president of the United States, second to the presidency. Do you think maybe that might help him more this time around, because Americans may be more comfortable going, okay, 4 years we've gone unpredictably off the rails. We're going to need somebody who can steer us back a little bit.
I think that's exactly right. One of the things you know in studying elections is we're often selecting somebody on the basis of what we thought were the weaknesses of the previous office holder. Donald Trump has been divisive. He's been polarizing. He's been unsteady in the sense of his massive turnover in his White House staff. A good portion of America might be ready for, let's just tone that down a little. The economy is going well. We don't want to sort of rock the boat here the way that this president has. And Joe Biden has a record. He has a track record. Back with no drama Obama.
How do you think Biden will fare in the debates?
You know, we have a track record with him, and it's not great. You know, he made 2 previous runs, and people forget that he made some gaffes, and he's noted for sort of off-the-cuff speaking, which, on the one hand, is very colloquial, very folksy, but it also leaves him prone to verbal gaffes. So we'll just have to see how much the new Biden is really a new Biden, and how much sort of reverts to this, oh, shucks, folksy, but I just put my foot in the mouth again, and whether that matters, too.
Do you think the Democrats or the Republicans have the, not home court advantage because he's in office, but which party might be stronger in this election cycle coming up? Yeah,
this is an interesting thing, and as political scientists, we're still trying to work through this, because in one respect, when we look at the general election, we look at macro fundamentals. For instance, how's the economy doing? And by most measures, it's doing really well. Usually the president's rewarded for that. But Donald Trump, in some ways, has defied political logic, and not in a good way. Yeah. His polling remains mired down in the low 40s, despite these economic variables that suggest that the economy is doing pretty well. And so it may be that he has solidified his support in this very polarized electorate among his base, but he can't expand it, right? And that may be a new dynamic, that he is so divisive that despite the fact the economy is doing well, he may not be able to capitalize on that in the way that he has in previous years. The other side of this is, who do the Democrats run against him? And are they going to be equally divisive as well? You know, the Democrats have to show that they can bring something to the table that can unify the electorate in a way that Donald Trump has not been able to.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. What is her effect, her impact? Everyone wants to be her friend. Everyone wants, it seems, wants her endorsement in the Democratic Party.
Yeah, one of the things we're looking at right now, that's a great question. Where do people like Ocasio-Cortez throw their support? Where do the party regulars throw their support? So we're looking at endorsements. She, for instance, has not weighed in yet. So we'll see how that plays out as well. It's great that you raise her, because she is representative of this millennial, younger version of the Democratic Party. What a lot of people argue is the party of the future when it comes to the Democrats. And so who she goes for is kind of an indicator, I think, about whether Bernie's going to be able to recapture that magic in 2016, or whether these younger people, whether they also resonate more because of their age.